starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn with Lanham. We're going to be learning about EDI today with both Jim Augustine and Charlotte Martinez. I know we are excited to get right into it, so I just have a couple of announcements before we do start. First, if you have any questions, type them into the question box for us. We are going to answer questions kind of at the midway point and at the end. So if you have any questions, type them in whenever you'd like. Also, we are recording this webinar, so if you'd like to watch it again or have somebody else in your organization see it, it will be up on our website by the end of the day. Our website, of course, is Innovia.com. So without further ado, Jim, I will hand it right over to you.
Thanks very much, Abby, for the introduction, and thanks those of you who are taking the time to spend an hour with us. And as promised, this weekend you get your hour back, so it's an hour well spent. We're going to jump in with a few slides and then look at some product. And we're actually speaking to both sides of our split personality here that we somewhat face at Lanham. We know that there's some of you that are here looking at our solution for the first time, and that there's some of you that are already current users and are curious about what's new with Lanham. So we're going to race through kind of both pieces of that, or both sides. And then, of course, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your Innovia team, or you can email me directly. My email address will follow at the end, and I'm happy to answer any questions for you at all as well. And then we'll just let Innovia know that you also reached out so they can stay in the loop of any communication. So lots of choices to get the questions answered if you wish. Our agenda today is pretty straightforward. We're going to cover some basics and then look again at what's new. So as an introduction, so Lanham Associates, if you don't know us, we are an ISV that exists inside the NAV Independent Solutions Vendor ecosphere, and our solutions extend into the areas of supply chain management that Microsoft just doesn't do and won't do. So in addition to what we're looking at here today, which is our EDI solution, we have other solutions that focus on boxes, and ones and zeros is where we focus. So if you've got other supply chain areas that of interest, lanhamassociates.com is our website. You can take a look at that and contact us if you've got questions about other functional areas that we create. So today we're going to quickly go through some very basic information about EDI, some basic information about Lanham's approach to the solution for EDI. And we'll do some demonstration, and then we'll look at what's new also through demo in our product as well. So what is EDI? You're here, you probably know most of this already, or maybe this is the first time you've had to explore it because you've got a customer or a vendor, which we refer to as a trading partner, that's asked you to get into the EDI world. So fundamentally at its core, EDI is the computer-to-computer exchange of business data without or limited human intervention. And the key word there is standard electronic format. Standard is somewhat loosely defined between trading partners, and although we like to have real specific rules on how data should be labeled and what it should look like, that isn't always the case, and there are some changes that go from one trading partner to the next that we have to be aware of. From a fundamentals perspective, there are in the world there are EDI standards, or otherwise known as protocols, and these are kind of the organizations that define what the data needs to look like. For us here in the States and generally in North America, which includes Canada and Mexico, the ANSI X12 standard is by far the most widely adopted and the most prolific. In Europe, there's a standard called EDIFACT, and that is also used here in the States in automotive and in aerospace industries. And then there has been a format which is known as XML around for a while. It's probably the newest protocol out there. And XML is a way of defining data that allows for communications between disparate operating systems or data systems in a more standardized way. And XML is gaining ground in the EDI world as well. The big players, Walmart, Boeing, General Motors, Target in the space are still very much entrenched in their protocols. They've invested millions of dollars over the years in their EDI infrastructure, and so XML is not going to erase those standards anytime soon. But we are seeing more XML, and in fact, we have a very important announcement around that here later by Charlotte. So those are the standards that we work with and that exist out there in the world. There are others. In the UK, there's an old standard called Tradicom, which I'd love to see go away, but slowly it's not. But these are the primary ones that we talk about in the EDI data protocol world. Now, a key element of any EDI solution, ours included, is what we call a translator, or otherwise known as a mapping tool. And this is the tool that is used to create the relationship between EDI data files and the host or the home ERP application. And without that translation, you really can't get the data translated and put into seamlessly into your ERP solution. Years ago, when I was in industry, our translator's name was Kathy, and we were the PO to fax machine from the EDI world that we would download, or to the printer. We'd print it, and then she would carefully look through and pick out the important stuff and key that information into our Solomon for DOS application. Kathy is hard to replicate, and so we need to have a more electronic way to do that. And so the EDI translators are a key part of the equation, and we'll see ours today. Next is kind of the documents. There are multiple ways in which the data can flow between you and your trading partners. And I actually have a graphic here for that in just a second. And so the two standard methods are to send your documents through a value-added network, which we refer to as a VAN in the world, or you can go directly to your trading partners. And there's advantages of both. We're real fond of using the direct connection method for reasons which I'll cover in just a second. So these are the key elements that make up any EDI solution that we have to address, and we all pretty much have to manage these in different ways. So today we're looking at data. So this is an example of an ANSI X12 formatted data file. It looks like text because it is, and you'll recognize a lot of characters there. We use an asterisk in between data elements, and we use a tilde at the end of the line to indicate that it's at the end of the line. You certainly can read this, and once you understand the data structures, some people can read this very quickly and pick through there. In fact, our Kathy, who learned how to do EDI, was very quickly able to learn the important areas that she needed to look at in order to key the data into our Solomon system at the time. So you can learn how to read these. XML looks a little differently, but basically we have a data file. This is actually just a text file that we use to bring into the system. Now the key here is this is the same text file on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, this is how that ends up inside, in this case, this is NAV 2016, into an area that we call a received document area, and we'll look at that. So I want to point out just a couple of elements, or key sections, I should say. Elements has a very key word in EDI. You'll note here on the left-hand side that I've focused the red box on a thing that we call the PO1 segment. This is a line in the EDI data that identifies information about our line item data, and the PO1 then represents on the sales order side or the inbound side information about our sales order lines, and if you were doing this on the outbound side, of course, it would be purchase order lines that you would be sending off to a vendor. And so the PO1 identifies that first hierarchy of data. And then next we move into the actual elements or the information about the line items. I'm highlighting here one in particular, which is identified as the 07 element. And you'll note here that we actually have translated this or mapped this, as the term that we like to use. We've mapped this into 3 different fields inside our NAV database. We've done this for different purposes from a demo perspective. You won't necessarily do that in production. You'd probably have it go to a single field. But in this case, this is the item number or the UPC number from our customer, and they're sending it to us. They're ordering to us with a UPC number, and we're putting that into 3 different data fields. And then later we'll use that obviously to determine what it is that they're ordering based on the NAV item number. But this is how that looks. This is the EDI data on the left-hand side, and then how it ends up on the right-hand side inside NAV. So that's an EDI document. Now, and the very basic information about EDI in general. Everything I said prior to that last screen really applies to any solution in the EDI space. There's all the things that we have to manage. Now, as far as the Lanham solution is concerned, which we've branded as Advanced Commerce ERP, there's some key elements that I hope you could take away from today's presentation. The first one is that it is a very integrated and complete solution. The term I think that I like to use is actually embedded. Everything we do is built inside NAV. We think that's a competitive advantage for users because they're familiar with the user interface. Everything that they need lives right there, including access to all of the data. And there's a lot of really strong reasons that we like working inside NAV. The alternative, of course, is to have something that is external to NAV installed locally or something external on the cloud. And although those solutions are viable, we think that they ultimately become more cost prohibitive, more expensive, because you're paying for either transactions or something like that. Plus, there's the learning curve of users maintaining different user interfaces and the integration between the two. So we're fond of having everything integrated and complete inside the application. This means that we have local control of our data and local ability to control our data and the environment. You can be as self-sufficient as you choose to be when you go with the Lanham solution, because you have access to everything: the mapping, the translation, cross-references, all the key elements that you need to operate, and I shall call the care and feeding of your EDI solution. It's all right there available to you locally. And the direct connection means that we can go directly to our trading partners and save the costs associated with the van, which I'm going to cover next slide. Finally, there's also a consideration in any solution is what documents are supported. Gone are the days when most of our customers need just a purchase order and an invoice. There are other documents, ASNs and purchase order changes and purchase order change acknowledgments and so on. And it seems that the trading partners are asking more and more. And so when you consider a solution, don't consider what you have for today. Consider what you may be asked in the future. And we have a very large list of documents that we support, which I'll show in the following slides. So from a data flow perspective, this is you. This is your NAV database. This is your NAV world. If you're a NAV user, obviously this is where you spend most of your life. And this is them. These are your trading partners, customers and vendors or factories, depending on which direction that you're going. And somehow we need to get this data file that we looked at earlier between you and them, all in a way that makes it easy to transact business. And so the first method, and not our preferred method, but it's still a reality, is to send data from NAV through some sort of a communications software. There has to be some tool in between that sits to process that data back and forth. We prefer a solution called Lexicon from the company is Clio, but there are others. And other EDI solutions package or bundle that solution, the communication software in theirs, but we think that Lexicon offers a great solution at a very, very reasonable cost. So that's one that we prefer, but there is some sort of communications that gets the data from you to either to them, and in many cases it needs to go through through a VAN. Now, we offer a VAN service, and we can investigate that at a later time if you've got interest. That's not part of the focus for today. The other way of getting data is, and really our preferred way, is really these two arrows right here, and that's going from you through your communication software directly to your trading partners, sending essentially these raw EDI files and receiving these raw EDI files. Now that's only made possible if you have the ability to locally translate or map the data between you and them. If you don't have this tool here locally, then that means it has to happen somewhere else, and typically that means that there are VANs that will provide that translation service, of course, for a fee, and that ultimately we believe leads to a much more expensive EDI solution. So we want you to have control of that mapping to get the data turned into what we saw earlier, from the raw data into the NAV list fields into usable NAV data, and we think that that's key. Now the rest of this is the rest of this. What do we have to do with the document next? Do we create sales orders? Are we acknowledging a purchase order? And so on. So that all lives, and you all know how to do that in your normal NAV stuff. And the EDI solution doesn't really add that much complexity into that normal kind of processing. Finally, complete solution. And here's this chart is showing you a lot. My key for this morning is right here, and that is the cross-references. Your customers are going to order using their numbers, in this case the UPC number. They're going to refer to their stores in their nomenclature, not necessarily your nomenclature that you set up in NAV, and so on. There are multiple other cross-references that we deal with in the EDI world that we've got to be able to deal with and to turn into usable data. And again, those cross-references, if you're not doing all of this locally, can be done somewhere else, but you've still got to then pay someone to do that or use a different set of software in order to maintain those cross-references, which ultimately leads to dual work, because we're going to have it still in NAV for other purposes perhaps, and then to do it in another solution means you're entering in data twice. It makes sense for us to just do it once. And then that information is used along with other information about our trading partner and our EDI map to ultimately create the documents that we need. In this flow chart, I'm showing purchase order, the typical paradigm, which is purchase order to sales order with some acknowledgments out and back, and then ultimately an ASN, which is an advanced shipping notice, and an invoice. And this is the typical paradigm that we pretty much all have to support. With Advanced Commerce ERP from Lanham, we do all of that, and including labels, which is in the EDI world is known as the UCC 128 label, also known as the GS1 128, also known as the MH10 if you're up in Canada. So this is a very specifically formatted label, and each trading partner does things a little bit differently. They might move the store number to over here and the barcode over here and things like that. But this is a fairly common formatted label, and we need to have those in most cases. So the solution then includes all the elements that are necessary for not only the data side of it, but the shipping side of it as well. And finally, on the documents, I mentioned that you really need to look at, in the long run, what documents you may ultimately have to have. This is our current list of documents that we support, all with some degree inside NAV, if not 100% inside NAV. essentially we either accept an inbound document or we'll create. And all of this list looks comprehensive. It's actually even more comprehensive when you consider that there's sales side EDI, which is the most commonly used inside NAV, which means you are accepting a purchase order from your customer and turning it into a sales order. But there's also purchasing side, and we've seen more customers adopting purchasing EDI because they recognize the efficiencies that can be brought to bear. And so there's the outbound side. So instead of creating a purchase order, bringing in a purchase order, you would be sending a purchase order. Now, those are both represented on here by the 850 nomenclature, because that's a purchase order, but it could be different whether it's inbound or outbound. So many of these are both inbound and outbound documents. And then finally down here in the 900 section is support for your third-party logistics providers. We have seen customers adopting more 3PLs, and there needs to be EDI support in there as well, so that we're not phoning orders or faxing orders or even snail mailing orders over to your warehouse. And so EDI is a standard that has been around in the 3PL world really since for the longest time, and we need to be able to support those, and we do fully support the documents that we need for the 3PL environment as well. And then for a nod for our EDIFAC folks, the buttons here that have text is how we refer to the EDI documents, and in that world we actually call them messages. So that's how we refer to those. So when you think about an EDI solution, these are the elements that are important. And now it's time to actually take a quick look at some of the software as well. So let me transition over here to NAV real quick. In the interest of time this morning, I already brought in a data file, and we're going to process it. But I would like to give a nod toward automation, and we really want to automate as much as we can and manage by exception. This is where the seamlessly simple stuff, kind of comes in. It really is more than just a tagline for us from the marketing team. We really are trying to make things simple, and EDI can be quite complex. But where we can make it simple, we try to make it that way. And leveraging the NAV Job Queue is one way that we can do that. Let the Job Queue act as that extra employee and do what it does best, and we fully support leveraging the Job Queue to create documents when necessary. I did want to step through a little bit here this morning, so I don't have the Job Queue turned on. But there are certainly places where you would want to turn that on, and I'll mention it as we go through. And the first one is to receive and send all the documents. That's a process here to receive and to send documents of various types. You would typically want to turn that on the Job Queue so that when the communication software does its thing in the middle of the evening or the middle of the night, then the Job Queue can then create the documents that were received inside NAV, so that the EDI processors walk in the morning and the first thing they see is a role center that has numbers that are greater than 0, meaning there's some things that they need to operate on today. And so I did that earlier, and you can see right here that I have a document that's received with an error. Now this was intentional, or it is intentional because of the structure of our demo data. We reuse the same data file over and over again. And in this case, I've got what we call duplicate purchase order turned on. And so it found a posted invoice with the same PO number from our trading partner. And we're going to warn you that that may exist so that you don't ship an order twice. And so we did trap that, and I stopped it on purpose. And then I'm going to go into this list fields area, and you can see this is the same screenshot that I looked at earlier in the slide. This is our EDI data. You can see here my segments and my elements on the left-hand side. And this is the actual data itself and the corresponding NAV field. In this case, it's that duplicate purchase order number. So I'm just going to add my initials to this, JA. I'm going to change the data and then reprocess my document. Now, with external solutions, of course, I'm not going to be able to go in here into NAV and do that. I'm either going to have to call someone if it's hosted, or I'm going to have to change into a different software solution, make the changes. But because I've got it all inside here in NAV, I can quickly make the change, say OK, and then go in and process my document again. Now you'll note this time that it falls off of my error because we've solved that problem, and now I'm back to what I like to see, which is mostly zeros here, except for the received document that was created, and there it is right there with my JA on it with the customer's purchase order number. All right. So when I click here and see, I see down here in this fact box on the right-hand side that what we have actually created is a single sales order that needs to be shipped. And I didn't have to do anything. The sales order has been created for me. Now I'm going to trace up here. We like to use trace. Think of trace in the is the same as a navigate inside base nav. And I'll use this ellipse here to go look at my sales order that was created. And here's my sales order that was created from that inbound purchase order. Now note here that this is our NAV item number, but on that purchase order that we received, and we looked at it earlier, the PO1 element was UPC numbers. So we have to be able to cross-reference that information in order to create the sales order. It's not uncommon for us to have a order that was received where the cross-references were maybe not set up yet, and you'll get a similar kind of error message, but the correction is just the same as what I just did. Add the new cross-reference into the area that we maintained it inside NAV and reprocess the order. No picking up the phone, no rejection of orders, just an immediate correction and reprocess. And in many cases, that's all that's required. That's the most common data error that we see is cross-references either not set up initially or incorrectly set up, or the trading partner changed it and didn't tell you. So any one of those. The sales order gets created automatically. I'm going to go ahead and release my sales order. Whatever your review process is for releasing, I'm just going to assume that everything is okay and release it so that we can ultimately ship it. But I did want to point out another thing here, which is our discount summary. This is another document that was created by virtue of the mapping, and that is to allow for discounts that are required. And this is a structure that doesn't exist inside base nav. We're adding multiple line item discounts and reason codes so that we can keep track of that for reporting purposes. And in the EDI world, this is a very common thing. If you're in the retail world and they open a new store, they always expect you to help them stock their new store with your product. And so they will take a new store discount, for example. And so a discount summary structure, it needs to be created. And again, this is a structure that we've added into NAV. And then in this case, we're actually breaking it down by different levels at the line item level as well. So it's a key requirement in most retail EDI that we've added in. Okay, the impact of that is not other than the financial side, so we'll leave that for now. Let me go back to my sales order here. And today is not meant to be a full demonstration of eShip and its relationship. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and use a function within eShip that we call FastPack, and which allows me to ship everything quickly. And the FastPack solution, I'm going to cheat and say that everything just fits in one box. So I'm going to go up here and say package and pack all. This puts everything in one box and gets ready to ship it. And now I'm going to, from within the FastPack, I'm actually going to close my order, which has the effect of posting my sales order shipment. You can see here that that's being posted. Now in the EDI world, and let me scroll, well, I'll have to refresh here, F5. And if I scroll to the right here, now you'll see that quantity shipped and quantity invoiced now has been updated. So this order has been shipped from a sales order shipment perspective. And then the last step, of course, is it would be to invoice it. But there's a step in between that needs to be acknowledged, and that is the advanced ship notice. Now, when I shipped it, down here is the next one, I didn't have to go in and do anything to create my advanced ship notice. My advanced ship notice is a requirement to send in most cases to our trading partner, and it has different structures of the way the data needs to look. Because I put everything into one box, my advanced ship notice has just the one package with all of my items in one box. In many cases, you'll have multiple boxes, of course, And so you'd have multiple elements or multiple layers of these, but I put them all in one box for convenience. But when I did that, notice I didn't have to do any additional work. Many solutions, you can go ahead and ship it, but then you have to go and create the ASN manually and populate that and send that along. With Advanced Commerce ERP from Lanham, it all just happens in one process. And then not only was it was created, but it's been released, and you'll note down here in my role center again that this ASN is ready to be sent. Now this is one of those tasks where you would use the job queue. I don't have to do anything with that ASN. I just need to have it move along. There's no reason for me to go and review it because I created the data from within eShip automatically. It's correct. Just let the job queue send it. I paused it today because I don't have a job queue, so it's getting ready to be sent, but ordinarily after we post that, it would be automatically created and automatically sent along. So pretty seamless, pretty simple, not a lot of human intervention required. Managed by exception, we need to update data that's incorrect or needs to have human intervention. Obviously, we need to pack and ship the order. I can't help you with that. But once that process is complete, the documents required that need to be created, the ASN, for example, can be sent automatically. That's about as simple as it can get. All right, I am probably 5 minutes over my allotted time. I apologize. So I am going to pause for questions, and while we're doing that, Abby will read them if there are any, and I'm going to change presenters over to Charlotte, who is going to, as I said, talk from the other side of our split personalities here at Lanham, and show you some of the things that we've done in the most recent release, and then talk about something that's on its way as well. So, Abby, I'll ask you first, do you have any questions to address?
So far, no questions, Jim.
Okay, perfect. So, Charlotte, I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Abby. Again, my name is Charlotte Martinez, and I'm the Senior EDI Specialist here at Lanham. And before I get started on my presentation, there was just one thing that I want to point out before I get into all the my actual presentation part. So Jim had showed you the ASN, and I just wanted to just make sure we clarify any questions that people might have on that. Because of my role here at Lanham, I do partner support. This is one of the things that comes in quite frequently, so I want to make sure everybody's very clear on it. The way that Jim was able to create that ASN and have everything that he needed on the ASN, the Advanced Shipment Notification, or 856, is because of what we call a packing rule. So you'll see here I'm in a packing rule, and I'm going to go to our test retail packing rule and just quickly point out the couple tabs on here. This is how it knows what UCC labels to print. This is how the system automatically created his bill of lading. This is how the system automatically released his bill of lading. And then this is how the system knew what format my test retail trade partner wanted their ASN format. So actually in the mapping guide of the trade partner, they'll tell you, I want my ASN in shipment order pack item detail, which is what Jim just showed us whenever he was in the bill of lading. So just wanted to make sure that everybody knows how that was created was because of the packing rule, and the packing rule would be assigned to the customer and ship to record. So if you have ship tos, make sure that you put the packing rule on the ship to record, so that whenever you post the shipment using eShip, it will automatically create that bill of lading, create the ASN summary type as shipment order pack item, and release that bill of lading so that it's ready for the job queue to pick it up. Okay, so just wanted to bring that up really quickly, and now I'm going to get back to my presentation. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be talking about new features in the latest release and some up-and-coming capabilities. So we had a new release, which is called SEO 6012, probably about a month or two ago. I'm not quite sure. It's been a blur these past couple months with all the wonderful conferences that we've been going to. But these are the features that I wanted to discuss today. The list that Jim showed you of the Lanham supported EDI document list that's complete and comprehensive now needs to be updated with some new documents that we're supporting, such as the 840 or 843. And basically that's a request for quote, that's on the sales side, and then a response to that request for quote. Also, we'll be going over the 820. We have supported the 820 on the outbound payment side in the past, but now we are supporting the 820 on the inbound side from your customer or vendor. We also have the capability to export single files. So, for example, whenever you run jobs, EDI jobs such as sending out your ASNs, if you've got 5 of them for one trade partner, it's going to make one big file with all of the different bills of ladings in it. Now you have the option to export them out single files. So that would actually create 5 different export files. The trade partner will let you know if that's one of their requirements. Because I am on the support side, this has come in the past, and I always take note of things that could be used in the future product. And so this one was coming in. I'm not sure which trade partner it was, or trade partners, but now we do support that. Also, mapping error trapping, always trying to make the mapping tool continually enhanced. I am a fast mapper, and I make lots of errors. And so now I know whenever I make an error because it beeps at me. And then up and coming XML capabilities, I'll go over that briefly towards the end. So my presentation is assuming that everybody took from Jim's presentation, and now we're going to expand on it vastly. So assuming everybody's EDI experts now. So the 840, 843, that is basically the trade partner soliciting you for pricing, maybe delivery date, making sure that you have inventory in stock, and then you'll reply to that. So this is just a screenshot of a sales quote, and you'll see here our EDI Fast tab. And this is the new fields that have been added to the system showing that this is pending a response to quote, and then the EDI response generated will be updated, as well as the date once I reply back to the sales quote. The 820 payment remittance advice, that's typically used in conjunction with the EFT or electronic fund transfer for the payment of goods. They could be paying an invoice, taking credit memos, and or making adjustments. Sometimes those adjustments are chargebacks, and we can allow for those. This is used on the customer payment side or vendor refund side. And then you can, in NAV, use cash receipts journal or deposits. So that's basically limited on whether or not you're going to use cash receipts journal or deposits. Deposits are not in worldwide versions of NAV, so you wouldn't have that option, and you just wouldn't use it. I prefer the cash receipts journal side. There's more flexibility on that side. So I will be demoing that for time's sake, but just know that the option to use the deposit journal is there as well. Exporting of single file, this is our EDI document list, and you'll see here on the export of the advanced purchase order acknowledgement, or an 855, all I had to do was check on that particular document that my trade partner wants one export file per NAV transaction. I'm not really going to demo that because there's not really a whole bunch. It's not easy to show that one. And then mapping made easier. So I'm the worst at setting length. Whenever you're doing your mapping, you need to set your length. And if it's 0, then it offsets everything in the map. Now, if you try to close down the page, it will say, hey, your length is 0. Go fix it, or you can intentionally bypass that message and close down the page if you're going to come to it at a later time. Also, the system will beep at you if you've got any element or conditional mapping errors, meaning you've got some you're mapping to some fields that don't exist. It will be flagged with a mapping error, and then whenever you try to close the page, it will beep at you. I really like this third one, conditional segment and conditional element lookup to prevent typos. So whenever you're mapping a conditional, you can actually do a lookup now. So you can do a lookup for the actual segment, because it might be P01 or it might be P01. I don't remember what I typed. But if it's P01 and I type P01, well, that condition will never be met. So that's why the lookup field was added. And then this isn't really mapping, but this has come up in the past before. Whenever we have a received document that has come on the inbound and there was an error text message, for example, Jim talked about the cross-references. Let's say a cross-reference, a new store is opened and you just haven't set that up in your system yet. If you try to process the received document, that message used to go away, and now it will stick on that received document until you fix that error and actually create the sales order in that case. Okay. All right, so I'm going to switch over to NAV here. For the sake of time, I've already run a couple documents. First, I want to show the 840, 843. This is our received document list. So anything that comes inbound first creates the received document, and then from there it'll create any applicable documents. Because this is an 840, it has created a sales quote, and so you can see over in my fact box, I've got my sales quote. I've got my part number, and then the EDI item cross-reference. So this is what the trade partner sent in, but this is my part number over here, so it's just a cross-reference. And from here, I can check pricing. I see there's a little discrepancy here, about 30 cents, and there's about 70 cents discrepancy here. If I want to call the trade partner, or if I'm going to edit the pricing and send back the outbound document saying, hey, your pricing was wrong, I could do that. Also, I could check stock. You know, maybe they want to order 7, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough in stock. I can see availability over here, which I do have enough in stock, but that would be an example. So it really depends upon what your trade partner wants as a reply. So you would have that mapped, and over here on our EDI SAS tab, anything that comes in inbound, like I said, creates the EDI received document. It's also tagged with this number, and that's how Jim was doing his trace. And so as this document flows through the system, this EDI internal document number will flow with it as well. So I can trace at any point in time to the received document, or from this quote back to the received document. So you can go back and forth. So from here, I could you know, make any adjustments to the quote itself. I can release it. And at this point, I would have my job queue set up to automatically send this file out, because now it's ready to go. Otherwise, since I'm already on this document and we're just showing this, I can process as well from the individual document. So, oh, that's my demo data. And let's see, I didn't read it, sorry. It's because I was clicking on the wrong one. Send EDI response to a quote request. Okay, so the document's been exported, and then now you'll see that this has been updated with today's date in the system. I know this date looks funky, but that's the way it is in the system. So that outbound file has been created, and it's actually been exported. So let's see, that's really all there is on the 840, 843 side. So next, I did want to point out, some trade partners, they will reply back with an 850 to create an Navision sales order, but some trade partners might just say, okay, from this order, from this quote, go ahead and make your order. And so I just want to point out that if I were to use the Navision function to make this quote into an order, I still have everything that I need intact to actually flow through the system without error, meaning that I'll have all the data that I need to send my outbound ASN as well as my invoice. Because everything is tagged with this EDI internal document number, sometimes the trade partner will send in data that's not applicable to your Navision system. So what we do is create what's called an EDI in, and we're just going to hold on to that data until you call for it on the outbound. And because of the link with this EDI internal document number, which flows through whenever I do make order, when I make this sales quote into an order, I'll be able to call that data on the outbound as well. So just wanted to point out, I can use the base Navision functionality to make an order, and it will flow through the system with all the necessary information to go outbound. Okay, next I'm going to talk about 820. So I've got, I need one more 820, so I'm going to have to receive in one more document. And this is creating, okay. Of course, I would want to use the job queue with that, but for time's sake, I just had to go ahead and process it. So now we're going to switch over to the 820 side. 820 is inbound cash receipts or deposits. For time's sake, I'm showing deposits. I can trace from here, and this one is an intentionally quote-unquote bad record. So anything inside of anything coming inbound creates that EDI receive document, then it's going to create an EDI payment remittance advice because this is an 820, and then if it could, it would have also created the cash receipt, but it cannot, and I'll explain why. This is what the EDI payment remittance advice looks like. You'll see I've got just a number series, who I'm paying, which is customer SE 60,000. Really over here is the important information, my payment number, which would be my check number. I intentionally put bad check. This is how much they're paying. This is a payment, and then a couple things here. Had the suggested cash receipts or deposit been created, I would be able, it would be selected here, and then I could actually navigate to the applicable journal. And it would also list the deposit and journal batch name. Whether or not there are adjustments in here, we'll look down here at the lines in just a minute. There are. If there was an application error entry, and there is. Okay, so let's go down and look at the lines. I'm actually going to make some more space here. Okay, so this is what came in on our file. So they're making a $5,500 payment to invoice number 103057 bad. So that obviously does not exist in my system, and therefore it was flagged with an EDI document find error, and the system stopped there. It did not create the cash receipt. This is at a point where you would need to correspond with the trade partner. You know, what happened? You're sitting in this invoice. I don't have it. Was that even meant for me? So we're done at that point. So I'm going to close this one down, and I've actually got a good one. Okay, so it's right here. I could click trace and go that way, but we already did that once. Let's go down here to our oh, that's the purchase side, sorry. Payment remittance advice right here. And here's my good one. Okay, so let's go look at that. So everything looks pretty much the same. This time I actually have a check number, how much they're paying. My cash receipts journal was created, and then the journal batch that was used was called bank. And there are adjustments, but there were no errors. So if I look down here, you'll see my payment, how much it was for, and the invoice number. I could navigate if I wanted to. And then there's several ways discounts can be handled. The way I chose was for it to write to a GL account, 45,200 for discounts granted, and then the other side will show as open on the customer side. So from here, I'm going to navigate to my cash receipts journal. It's in the bank journal, so let's go view it. Okay, so here's my entry, and at this point, I could make any adjustments, but hopefully you should not need to. I can look at the applied entries, which is down here. So there's my check number. Okay, so this is applied against that. And then I've got my $43 for a discount that was taken. I need to research that at a later date, but I want this to go ahead and reflect on my bank. So I'm going to post it. So basically, after the EDI payment remittance advice was created, the cash receipts journal was created, but then that's just standard NAV rules. From the cash receipts journal, then of course it goes to the customer ledger entries. And we're going to navigate to the ledger entries. And here is check number 111. You'll see the remaining amount is 0. I could do any sort of navigation. I could look at the applied entries. Here's the invoice that it was paying. This is open amount. So if I do research this and I want to make the application to invoice number 103058, which is probably here at the bottom, 103056. Right, 8 right here. I could do that. That's just basic NAV rules, so that's really outside of the 820. So that was the 820 high level. And now I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint because I see I'm running up on time. And okay, so next we're going to talk about XML. So XML is the new keyword that's out there. Basically, all it is human readable and machine readable files. So you can see here, I've got addresses as my node, and then type is my element, and then ST is the actual node element data that's being referenced. So this is very human readable rather than X12. I've worked with X12 enough that I can read those files. These are easier to read, but with the easy readability, you have really large files, whereas X12, they're not as large. So right now, what we're looking at doing is supporting CXML. It's the XML implementation standard we'll incorporate to the product. Why CXML? Well, it's because it's easy to extract the information from the CXML file. It's more, it is quote unquote a standard file. And you'll see here in this file that I have a screenshot of, I've got a DTD. So that DTD is going to tell me what each node, an element node, and attribute actually means. And I can tell that this is a CXML file because it says so right there. And then it's got my DTD right here. I could click on this link and it would open up, that up. So CXML continues to expand their document templates. So we're starting, let's just say inbound, they call it orders, and that's basically a Navision sales order. And so they have certain CXML files that they're using to trade documents. We'll work on those, and as they continue to expand the CXML document templates, we will as well. So what about those other XML files? There are other XML files. As you can see, the format is very similar. It's just not as standardized. So we will support those as well, but we don't know what all we don't know. So we're taking files that we've received from our partners and actually been working with those to process. So I'm going to switch over to the product really quickly. Oops, that is not the product. And show you, this is a CXML file that I have already opened. So we changed up the mapping a little bit on CXML. I think you're going to like this if you're used to mapping the way that it is today. We suggest that you get a test file from your trade partner. And so I'm just going to copy this link right here. And I'm going to come over here and show you how easy it is to map. So I'm going to make a new trade partner. I'm going to call him Demo CXML. Okay, and then I'll fill in the rest of the data later. So I'm going to go to Document. And if you're familiar with our Navision document, this basically tells the system what to do. So I_FLSORD is going to tell the system that that's a Navision sales order. The EDI document number, that's not as applicable. What is applicable is this, that this is an XML document. I'm going to go ahead and specify my template and demo the XML. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is mapping and how easy it is. I'm going to go up to this, the ribbon to create CXML segments. I'm going to paste that link that I had from Internet Explorer. And then this is where I'm going to tell the system I'm switching from header information to line information. So I'm going to come down here, and you can see that was bill to, here's some tax information, and then item out, okay? And then this is all item information. So this is where the system's going to create header, sales header information, and then from item out down, that's where it's going to create the line information. So I'm just going to type in item out, and then okay. We're going to wait here for a second, and there. So now I can go into my segments, and you'll see that it has now taken this file and translated it to put it in here. That does not mean that everything is completely done, because we need to know where you want the applicable data to go, and we'll look at that. You'll notice that some are bolded and some are not. The ones that are bolded are the ones that need to be looked at. So I'm going to come down to item out, supplier part ID, because we're more familiar with that. And if I go into the elements, you'll see that it's already mapped it to supplier part ID. Well, that's actually my Navision sales line, and it could be EDI item cross-reference, which is probably what it is. And then I'm not going to set the link, but then now I got this error message that my length is not set. So that's part of the mapping tool that we have added. So I'm going to actually go back in and add my link. And then that element or node is actually ready to go. So really, in general, what this does is it gives you an outline, and then you go back and fill in the blanks. And I do have mapping errors on here, as you can see, but I'm going to go ahead and close it. And this is going to work just like as if it were X12, XML. I had to drop some files, so I'm just going to receive them all. So the end user, because we believe here at Lanham that embedded is better, they're not going to be able to tell the difference between CXML or X12 or EDIFACT. Basically what it does is it did the same thing that those X12 documents did. You'll see here for CXML, it created a received document, because everything inbound creates an EDI received document, and then it actually created my sales order. So here's my sales order for the trade partner called CXML, and again, I've got that EDI internal document number. So we just like to keep things consistent, and with that, I am going to be closing. So thanks you for
Charlotte.
your time.
Excellent. Will you pass it back to me, please, for the presentation mode?
Yes.
Great. Okay, Abby, as I transition over, were there any questions that we wanted to address?
Yes. Here's our question. Using ADCS, can you correlate items to separate packages, in parentheses pallets, at the time of picking for correlation to the ASN package? Multiple packages per sales order and multiple packages per shipment. Is it also possible to print ASN labels at the time of picking through ADCS, or does this need to be done from pack line scanning?
Okay, great question. All right, so ADCS, for those of you that are not familiar with that, is Automatic Data Collection Systems, and that's a base Microsoft functionality that we use to create what we call ACE warehousing, which is our implementation of a wireless warehouse world. So there's a lot of assumptions in how that process works, and the answer is yes. It is, well, it's a partial yes. To the first part is, could I create a package level detail with ACE warehousing? And the answer to that question is yes, using the pick pack module from Lanham, which is part of our warehousing solution. I could create that level of detail that I could then use in eShip. Now, we typically print UCC labels out of eShip, and so the answer to printing the labels is no from the handheld device. but you could print them from pack line scanning. Now, with the addition of the pick-pack module, that process is very fast and simple, but it's obviously deeper than we have time to go into today. Whoever asked that question, if you want to email Abby or me and let me know who you are, we can drill down into that deeper. That's not a quick 30-second answer. So.
Okay, great. And so Stuart, I will get your email address to Jim so that you guys can drill down deeper into that if you need to. And
Great,
with
thanks.
that, guys, we are at the top of the hour, so perfect timing.
So I have just a couple things. Just in case anyone was wondering, 2017, when are we available? So NAV released the final version of 2017, I think a couple of days ago. We are actually already have a customer live on 2017 in a beta version, and so we need about a week or so to validate that our final release is copacetic with Microsoft's final release. They have in the past made changes between their last, let's call it beta release, and their final release that requires us to update stuff. So we go through a little testing on that area. So you can expect 2017 from Lanham within a week, 10 days at the outside, barring anything really that I'm not aware of. But I think that's our guess. So, and then finally, you can see on the slide here the Lanham Supply Chain Summit is something that we started last year. This is an end user and partner conference, but primarily focused at end users. It's a 3-day conference. It's in April this year in Atlanta, and it is a drill down deep into EDI, eShip, and ACE warehousing, pretty much a day per product. And there's information there on our public website. If you're interested in attending or planning for budgeting for next year, please go ahead and take a look, and there's more information on our public website. So thank you all for joining. Of course, we always like spending time with our partners and end users. My email address is on the screen now. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions and anything that we covered today or any other of the Lanham products. Abby, thanks to Innovia for putting this together, and that's all I have for today.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you on our next webinar.